Isometric RPGs are very complex. All these classes and races and random people screaming at you about the end of the world and asking if you want to take the red or the blue pill in order to save it.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Well, I've been asked a lot about how to get into isometric RPGs, and this list is a perfect way to dip your toes in. So let's go. If you've played one of the CRPGs on this list, your job is to go into the comment section down below and tell other people why they should play it in your opinion, and I'd really be interested to see what you think of the CRPGs on this list. Now, let's go. As a general tip, avoiding Dungeons and Dragons based CRPGs is your first pointer, really, because most of the Dungeons and Dragons CRPGs are more complex with their classes and races and expect you to have some background knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons games like Baldur's Gate or even the Pathfinder series, which is extremely complex. And while these are fantastic games in their own right, they can be very daunting and hard to get into, and it's much better to dip your toes in with games that are on this list. And we're going to start out with the easy one, and that is Divinity Original Sin 2. Divinity Original Sin 2 is one of the best CRPGs and just RPGs in general of all time, in my opinion. Why do you struggle with CRPGs? You don't like the bad graphics? Well, Divinity Original Sin 2 is beautiful. Don't like reading dialogue? All the lines are spoken. What about creating a character? It's pretty scary. Well, you can try one of the pre-made characters that have a full backstory and their own unique quest. You don't like turn-based combat? Well, I can't really help you there. The game is turn-based, but it is one of the best turn-based systems with great animations and the terrain effects like blowing up poison clouds with fire and the other things that you can do. Another bonus really is that the lore is very easy to get into in Divinity Original Sin. The world of Divinity Original Sin 2, and even though this is the second entry in the series, you don't need any background knowledge. For the first one, you can dive right in, and the opening act of the game on that initial island does such a good job of introducing you to the world and the characters and how you can interact with the world space and the quests and the environments around you. It's a very hand-holdy intro that does a fantastic job of really engaging you and teaching you about its many systems. This game received multiple 10 out of 10s and Game of the Year awards, and it's also entirely playable in co-op. So if you convince a buddy to jump on board with you, you can both have a great time. This is easily the best place to start. Next, we have Disco Elysium. Again, it has won many awards for its unique story and gameplay. Disco Elysium doesn't have combat, but what it does have is stellar writing and a crazy alcoholic detective with many voices in his head that directly impact the story and your investigations as a detective. Disco Elysium is slower paced than other CRPGs because of its lack of combat, but the game world is very deep with tons of interesting characters and mysteries to solve, and the voices in the main character's head are hilarious. The new Final Cut release also adds more voice acting to the game, so pretty much all the lines in the game are now spoken, which for me personally, that makes such a difference with CRPGs because I personally hate reading. I started playing Disco Elysium to get some B-roll footage for this video and found myself laughing at lines that I had already heard before because they're just that good. This is a really unique experience that I think most people should check out, and that's really special in its game design, and it's well worth trying just to understand what makes this game special. Next is Dragon Age Origins. Now hold up there, Tiger. You might be thinking, this isn't a CRPG. What the hell are you talking about there, Norza? But the game has a tactics mode where you can scroll all the way out and play it as if it is an isometric CRPG. It is basically a standard Western RPG with a isometric RPG tacked onto it. So you can play it both ways. It's a bridge between two worlds, as a semi-open world RPG that you can also play as an isometric CRPG. So you can test the waters with both systems and see what you like best. Dragon Age Origins was made by BioWare before their downfall, and it's one of the best Dragon Age games with tons of replayability. I had this game on the Xbox 360 back in the day when I was a young lad, and remember pulling all-nighters on school nights just to see what happened next. BioWare also did one of the best introductions or tutorials in gaming, still today I think, by having you play an entirely different origin story and tutorial based on your race and class choice on the character creation screen. There are many different options depending on whether you're dwarf, elf, or human, and that will change the entire intro sequence. And even in one of them, you can get a cute doggo pet. There is a short prologue story that will introduce you to the world, the character, who you specifically are, and the game as a whole, and then you're whisked away by the Grey Wardens to go and save the world. I love that aspect of the game, and it really adds to the role-playing of your character and the story as a whole and helps you feel grounded in the game. And even though the graphics and the combat system haven't aged perfectly, if you're on PC, there are some mods that you can download to help alleviate this. But the positive is that the game and all of its DLC are often super cheap, and it's also on Game Pass. Next, we have Pillars of Eternity 1 or 2, and I'll leave it up to you which one to pick. Now, if you're a completionist, you can obviously play Pillars of Eternity 1 and then 2, and they're both solid CRPGs, except Pillars of Eternity 2 is much more refined and focused experience to enjoy, especially for a CRPG beginner. This one is hard to recommend as a whole, as it is very close to that whole Dungeons & Dragons template that we are trying to avoid, and the Pillars games are very lore heavy, and it's their own lore that they've created, or Obsidian have created for this universe. These games are developed by Obsidian Entertainment, the makers of Fallout New Vegas, Outer Worlds, and the upcoming Avowed, which is a Skyrim-like open world RPG set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. So if you like open world games, you're keen to check out that world when it does come out, you'll be able to get a good understanding of the lore and the world that it's set in by playing the Pillars of Eternity games, which is why it's on this list and why you should check it out. They are both solid CRPGs with really good writing, and I think the second entry especially stands out with this because of the great voice cast with Ashley Johnson, Laura Bailey, Matt Mercer, Troy Baker, all these big namestays that you would know from gaming voices. Like, you've definitely heard their voices before in other things, but both games are very solid to try. If you do want to try a more lore heavy CRPG, these are ones to check out. And the last one on this list is Wasteland 3. This may be the last on the list, but don't sleep on Wasteland 3. You could go Wasteland 2, but again, in a similar way to Pillars of Eternity, I think 3 is much better. I considered Fallout 1 or 2 because of the nostalgia for Fallout fans out there for the Bethesda Fallout games, but man, those games are rough in 2022. So why not play the latest CRPG entry in the series that spawned Fallout? I reviewed Wasteland 3 at launch and praised it for its great writing, its RPG systems, and its choice and actual consequences of those choices. And I noted that the game had way too many bugs at launch, and now they are mostly gone. In Exile has been steadily updating the game since its launch in 2020 and adding new features and also 2 brand new DLCs. Wasteland 3 is a tight CRPG experience with a fast-paced turn-based combat system, which I quite like. And if you're worried about jumping into the third entry of the series, again, like some of our other titles on this list, I wouldn't worry too much. Wasteland 3 gives you a rough history of what happened in Wasteland 2. You don't need to understand the events directly, as this is set with an entirely new cast with only 1 or 2 characters returning from the previous entry. It just gives you a rough, hey, this is what happened in the past, this is who we are, and away we go. There is a really deep story here with tons of actual legitimate consequences based on the decisions you make. You can directly affect the outcome of the story as well as the outcome of just some people's lives in that world. It is a great CRPG if you're really looking for a game that has a lot of consequences, as well as a different take on a turn-based combat system where you take all of your turns at the same time, so you can really set up combinations and really focus fire on high value targets in combat. I really enjoyed the turn-based system in this game, and turn-based combat isn't often my favorite kind of combat. But not to sound like a broken record, but have you heard of Game Pass? Wasteland 3 is also on Game Pass. So 3 of the games on this list are on Game Pass, so I highly recommend checking out those. Let me know in the comments if you have played any of these CRPGs, which is your favorite, or if I've helped you pick one to try. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Thanks to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.